Chapter 7: Checking your performance as a teacher and keeping up to date. Teachers should take responsibility for their personal continuing professional development and regularly assess and review their own competence. Teaching as a professional activity. Teaching is a professional activity that requires mastery of the subject matter that is being taught, mastery of approaches to teaching that result in students' effective and efficient learning. It should be apparent from the earlier chapters that teaching is an immensely complex and multifaceted activity that involves a wide range of competencies and attributes, as illustrated in the three-circle model shown in Figure 7.1. Teachers, if they are to meet their responsibilities, require a range of technical skills that equip them to impart knowledge, teach practical skills, assess students, conduct small group sessions, and facilitate students' learning in a range of contexts. These technical skills, represented by the inner circle in Figure 7.1, are covered more fully in later chapters of the book. The teacher, however, is a professional and not simply a technician. As described in the earlier chapters in this section, teachers have to approach their work with an understanding of the underpinning educational principles, with the necessary passion and appropriate attitudes, and using a combination of evidence-based decision-making and intuition. Figure 7.13 circle model of the competencies required of a teacher. Performance of tasks, the technical skills and what a teacher is able to do. Approach to tasks, how the teacher approaches their tasks. Professionalism, the personal development of the teacher. In this chapter, we focus on the personal development and professionalism of a teacher. This is the outer circle in the figure. Key professional responsibilities for teachers include the need to reflect upon and be aware of their strengths and weaknesses as a teacher and be an inquirer into their own competence. Review current approaches and keep up to date with new approaches to teaching and learning. Inquiring into your own competence. As professionals, teachers have to take responsibility for the quality of their teaching and for the assessment of their own competence. In choosing to read this book, you have demonstrated your interest in teaching. The expertise required to set appropriate standards for assessment procedures or to prepare an e-learning program are obvious. In other areas, such as lecturing or the facilitation of learning in small groups, the expertise required may be less clear. Most teachers at some stage in their career will have given one or more lectures, run a small group session, or counseled a student or trainee without necessarily having reflected on their performance in relation to the task. Assessing your own personal strengths and weaknesses is notoriously difficult. With students, for example, poorer performers are more likely to make an overinflated assessment of their competence. The same may be true for teachers. The teacher may believe that he or she has given an outstanding lecture, while in practice students find the lecture incomprehensible, boring, and irrelevant. A teacher may use a small group session to express his or her own views and thoughts on a topic without appreciating that the students have not been engaged actively in discussion, nor have they been stimulated to reflect on their experience. A teacher may think that the counseling and feedback session provided for the students or trainees in difficulty has gone well, while the opposite is the case with the problem not addressed. Here are some suggestions that may help teachers to assess their teaching prowess. Stop and reflect on your own performance as a teacher. By reading this book, you have started this process. Study feedback from students about your performance. Students' views are obtained commonly through a questionnaire or a focused discussion. Feedback should address your coverage of the topic and your method of delivery and presentation skills. Have you inspired the student to learn about the subject? The information obtained can be useful, but it has to be treated with an element of caution. In the classic example of what has been termed the Dr. Fox effect, a professional actor, unbeknown to the students, was briefed to give an entertaining lecture that was educationally poor. It was subsequently rated highly by students. Obtain feedback from colleagues. Peer evaluation of teaching is now standard practice in many medical schools. It is important that the feedback provided is constructive rather than destructive. Such feedback is easier to obtain if you are working as part of a team. If you know your peers well, you may be less inhibited to ask for their comments and more likely to trust their judgment and accept their feedback on your performance. Make a video of your teaching. This may be useful, and idiosyncrasies and defects in your teaching may become obvious. You can assess your performance on the video on your own or with a colleague. Take part in an objective structured teaching exercise. OSTEs, which are modified objective structured clinical examinations, can be developed to help you assess your teaching skills in a practical context. Assess whether your students have achieved the expected learning outcomes. One measure of the effectiveness of your teaching is how well your students perform in written or clinical examination questions relating to the part of the training program for which you are responsible. This information, however, may not be readily available to you. Assess whether you have influenced your students' or trainees' career choice and subsequent career. Such information may be achieved anecdotally from former students, but it is a difficult outcome to assess. Study measurements of the educational environment in your institution. The educational environment can be assessed in your institution as described in Chapter 21. Your teaching may contribute to this. Participate in conferences on medical education. Participation in educational meetings or conferences provides you with the opportunity to compare your teaching practice with that of colleagues. By doing so, you might improve your own teaching. Keeping up to date. Medical education, just like medicine and healthcare delivery, is constantly changing. Over the past decade, significant developments have taken place with curriculum planning, including moves to outcome-based education and interprofessional education. With assessment including the wider use of portfolio assessment, work-based assessment, and standard setting, and with new learning technologies including high-fidelity simulators, virtual patients, and the use of the internet. Teachers in medicine have a responsibility to keep up to date not only with their subject area, but also with developments and new approaches to education that may be relevant to their teaching practice. There are different ways of keeping up to date, and we have listed some of them. You should choose the approach that works best for you. Textbooks. A growing number of books are available that cover in more depth than is possible in this book topics such as curriculum planning, teaching and learning methods, and assessment. A companion volume that discusses some aspects in more detail is a practical guide for medical teachers. If you have a particular responsibility in one area, such as organizing an OSCE, you may find it helpful to read a text on the topic such as the Definitive Guide to the OSCE. Journals. Most teachers read the journals relating to their own specialty, but it is unlikely that the discipline-based journals will provide adequate coverage of medical education. Key international journals in the field of medical education are Medical Teacher, Medical Education, Teaching and Learning in Medicine, Advances in Health Sciences, Education, and Academic Medicine. Online journals such as MedEd Publish, BMC Medical Education, and Medical Education Online also merit consideration. You may find more specialized education journals in your own area of teaching, such as Education for Primary Care, Anatomical Sciences Education, or Medical Science Education, newsletters, and online information. Many professional organizations produce newsletters that help to keep their members up to date with education developments. Information on a range of education topics can be accessed using a search engine such as Google, through an online education community such as MedEd World, or by following an education blog. Guides and reports. The Association for Medical Education in Europe publishes a series of guides designed to inform the practicing teacher about contemporary medical education practice. Over 100 guides cover topics relating to curriculum planning, teaching and learning methods, assessment, management, research, and theories in medical education. Systematic reviews of evidence relating to topics in medical education are published by the Best Evidence Medical Education Collaboration. conferences, and meetings. Attendance at a local, national, or international conference or meeting where the theme is medical education is a popular way of keeping up to date. Some meetings, such as the annual meeting of MEE, include in their program workshops and masterclass sessions on a range of medical education topics. Courses on medical education. An increasing number of courses on medical education are available delivered face-to-face or at a distance. These may be of short duration or more extended and lead to an award of a certificate, diploma, or master's degree in medical education. This book was written to support the online AMEE Essential Skills in Medical Education course. Membership of professional education associations or communities of practice. One way of keeping up to date is to join a professional organization committed to medical education. This may be a regional educational organization such as the Association for the Study of Medical Education in the UK, the Spanish Society for Medical Education in Spain, the Netherlands Association for Medical Education in the Netherlands, or the Canadian Association for Medical Education in Canada, or an international organization such as AME or the International Association of Medical Science Educators. Membership may include a subscription to a medical education journal, registration for conferences, and access to other membership services. It is worthwhile considering joining a network of medical educators such as mededworld.org, which is an online global network of teachers in the healthcare professions who are committed to sharing ideas, resources, and expertise in the field of medical education. As a teacher, you have a responsibility through one or more of these approaches to keep your teaching up to date, to know how your students can best learn, to recognize how the learning outcomes can be assessed, and to understand how the educational activities can be organized into a meaningful program or curriculum. Scholarship in teaching. In his seminal work, Boyer described teaching as one of the 4 categories of scholarship in a university. Priorities of the professoriate, he argued, is at the core of the university, and teachers should be elevated to a status equal to research. Scholarship in teaching and learning requires teachers to reflect on their own teaching, noting what is successful and what does not work. The teacher is, argued Martin Hammersley, a skilled practitioner continually reflecting on her or his practice in terms of ideals and knowledge of local situations and modifying practice in light of these reflections, rather than a technician merely applying scientifically produced curriculum programs. Share their experiences and communicate with colleagues within the discipline in their institution, across disciplines in their institution, and regionally, nationally, and internationally. Innovate and explore new approaches that work best in facilitating students' learning. As a teacher, you are a key player and a catalyst for change. You can help to change the world of medical education by understanding it and bring about change in your own context.